K'Thax hurried through the gleaming corridors back to his diplomatic quarters, his four hearts racing with growing dread. The Vextar were making a catastrophic mistake, one that would cost countless lives on both sides. As the door sealed behind him, he activated his secure communication array and contacted the Galactic Conquests Central Archives. "This is Ambassador K'Thax requesting emergency documentation protocol," he said, his voice wavering slightly. "I need to establish an official record regarding species designation 3721, locally known as humans." The holographic interface flickered to life, revealing the serene face of the head archivist. "Protocol acknowledged, Ambassador. Please proceed with your statement." K'Thax took a deep breath before continuing. "The Vextar Imperium has committed to a full-scale invasion of Earth, dismissing all diplomatic warnings and historical evidence of humanity's unique defensive capabilities. I have attempted to convey the particular dangers this species presents, but Supreme Commander Vorzak believes their technological advantage will ensure swift victory." He pulled up his personal research files, projecting them into the communication field. Images of human warfare throughout their history filled the display. Ancient warriors with primitive weapons showing tactical brilliance, world wars that accelerated technological development at unprecedented rates, and modern conflicts where outnumbered forces prevail through unconventional thinking. "Humans don't fight like any other species we've encountered," K'Thax explained. "Most civilizations develop unified military doctrines. Humans have thousands, constantly evolving and adapting. Their historical records are filled with examples of technologically superior forces being defeated by innovative defenders." The archivist's expression remained neutral. "The Concordat cannot intervene in Vextar military operations without council approval. What is your specific request, Ambassador?" K'Thax gestured toward the viewport where Earth hummed like a blue jewel against the darkness. "I'm not requesting intervention. I'm establishing a record for future reference. When this invasion fails, and it will fail, other species must understand why. Humans aren't just another planetary civilization. They're something we haven't properly classified yet." He pulled up additional data showing human scientific progress over the last century. They've advanced from primitive flight to rudimentary space exploration in less than 100 planetary cycles. Their communication technology evolved from basic radio to global quantum networks in half that time. They regularly depict scenarios in their entertainment media that their technology cannot yet achieve, then set about making those depictions reality. The archivist looked concerned. "These advancement curves are inconsistent with established developmental patterns." "Precisely," K'Thax said. "And now the Vextar will provide them with direct access to interstellar technology centuries ahead of their current capabilities. Do you understand what that means?" Before the archivist could respond, K'Thax's communication terminal chimed with an incoming message from Vextar Command. The invasion timetable had been accelerated. The first wave would deploy within 12 hours. K'Thax closed the archive connection and slumped into his chair. He had one last option, a risky one that would violate several diplomatic protocols and possibly end his career. He could attempt direct contact with human authorities to warn them. The Concordat's non-interference directives were clear, but so too was his duty to prevent unnecessary bloodshed. As he weighed his options, the ship's view screens showed the Vextar fleet moving into attack formation. 300 warships against a planet that had never encountered alien life. It should have been overwhelming odds. Yet K'Thax couldn't shake the feeling that the humans were about to deliver a lesson the galaxy would never forget. The Vextar Tactical Command Center buzzed with frantic activity as invasion reports flooded in from all sectors. The massive holographic display of Earth at the center of the room was dotted with red warning indicators where landing operations had encountered unexpected resistance. Commander Vorzak paced in agitation, his exoskeleton clicking against the polished floor. "Explain this," he demanded, pointing to a cluster of red markers over what humans called North America. An entire battalion incapacitated by primitive forces. The tactical officer swallowed nervously. The humans are using their civilian infrastructure against us, Commander. They've converted their transportation networks into troop movement systems. Their residential buildings have become fortified positions. They're even using their entertainment and sports venues as coordination centers. Cathax observed quietly from his permitted position near the entrance. The Concordat's diplomatic protocols allowed him to witness but not interfere. He activated his recording implant, documenting everything for future analysis. In the region designated Switzerland, the tactical officer continued, they've moved their defensive operations underground. The mountain tunnel systems were already hardened against attack. Our scans show they're moving manufacturing equipment into these bunkers. They're establishing subterranean production facilities for weapons development. Vorzak slammed his armored fist onto the console. They're savages with rudimentary projectile weapons. How are they coordinating on a global scale when our jammers have disabled their primary communication systems? Another officer looked up from his station. Sir, they've fallen back to older technologies we didn't account for. Physical copper wire networks, mechanical radio transmitters, even systems using light signals and something called amateur radio operators. It's as if they prepared for this specific scenario. Fax knew this wasn't preparation. It was adaptation. Humans hadn't been ready for an alien invasion, but centuries of their own conflicts had taught them to improvise when primary systems failed. The most disturbing development, the intelligence officer interjected, comes from their scientific institutions. We've intercepted communications indicating they're already collecting our technology from damaged vessels. Research teams across multiple continents are sharing findings through encrypted channels we haven't cracked yet. From his observation point, Cathax noticed a junior officer's panicked expression as she approached the command table. Supreme Commander, we've lost contact with the primary landing force in the region called Finland. Last transmissions indicate they were engaged by civilians using improvised explosives and modified farming equipment. Before communications cut out, they reported the humans were using the dense forest terrain in ways our combat simulations didn't predict. Vorzak turned to his strategic advisor. These are disorganized primitives. How are they countering tactics that subdued the crystalline hive minds of the Marotan collective? The answer was obvious to Cathax. The Marotan collective, like most spacefaring civilizations, had evolved toward efficiency and unity of purpose. Humans had evolved through chaotic competition, developing thousands of different approaches to survival simultaneously. A commotion near the tactical display drew everyone's attention. New alerts were appearing faster than the system could categorize them. Sir, reported the sensor officer, we're detecting energy signatures consistent with our own weapons technology, but they're coming from human positions. Somehow they've already reverse-engineered captured equipment and deployed it against our secondary landing waves. Cathax quietly updated his report's title, The Species That Doesn't Know When It's Outmatched. He was beginning to think the Vextar were the ones outmatched here, despite their overwhelming technological advantage. As the command center erupted into increasingly desperate tactical replanning, Cathax wondered how long it would take the proud Vextar to realize the same. Cathax adjusted his environmental suit as he stepped into the human research facility. Technically, his presence here violated several Concordat non-interference directives, but he justified it as diplomatic observation. The truth was simpler. He needed to see firsthand what the humans were accomplishing. The laboratory bustled with activity. Scientists from dozens of nations worked side by side in what had once been a particle physics research center. Now it served as humanity's primary reverse engineering hub. Security personnel eyed Cathax cautiously, but allowed him to proceed under his escort's guidance. Ambassador, thank you for coming. Dr. Ileana Chen greeted him, not bothering to remove her safety goggles or gloves. Your insights on Vextar technology have been invaluable. Cathax nodded, still stunned by how quickly this facility had transformed. 3 weeks ago, these humans had never seen alien technology. Now their lab contained partially disassembled Vextar components, labeled with detailed technical notes. I'm merely providing context. Cathex said carefully. "The actual adaptation is entirely your work." Dr. Chen led him past workstations where engineers hunched over circuit assemblies that combined human and Vex-Star components. "We're integrating their power distribution systems with our existing infrastructure," she explained. "Their energy efficiency is remarkable, but their interface design is—" She paused, searching for a diplomatic term. "Rigid," Cathex supplied. "The Vex-Star value standardization above all else." "Exactly," she nodded. "They design beautiful systems that work perfectly within their parameters, but they don't account for improvisation." They stopped before a large chamber where a modified Vex-Star shield generator pulsed with energy. The diagnostic displays showed power outputs far exceeding the device's original specifications. "You've overclocked it," Cathex observed, using a human term he'd learned recently. Dr. Chen smiled. "The Vex-Star build in significant safety margins. They prioritize reliability and longevity. We're willing to sacrifice both for immediate performance gains." Another scientist approached, carrying what appeared to be a modified human weapon with Vex-Star components grafted onto it. "The prototype is ready for field testing, Dr. Chen," the man reported. "We've successfully miniaturized the targeting system and integrated it with standard-issue rifles. The power cells only last for 30 shots, but that's a 200% improvement over yesterday's version." Cathex marveled at the hybrid creation. The Vex-Star would consider it an abomination. Elegant alien technology cobbled together with primitive human craftsmanship. Yet he suspected it would be terrifyingly effective. "Ambassador," Dr. Chen said, lowering her voice, "we've intercepted communications about the Vex-Star's biological weapon deployment. We need to know, does your species have immunity or protection against their pathogens?" The question caught Cathex off guard. "No. The Concordette's biological composition differs significantly from both humans and Vex-Star." "Why do you ask?" She led him to a sealed room where researchers in full containment suits worked with advanced microscopy equipment. On the screens, Cathex could see molecular structures being manipulated in real time. "We've not only developed countermeasures against their bioweapons," she explained. "We've modified them to target Vex-Star biology, specifically while leaving other species unaffected. Before we deploy this, we needed to ensure your people wouldn't be harmed." Cathex stared at the display in disbelief. The Vex-Star had spent decades developing their biological arsenal. The humans had reverse-engineered and repurposed it in less than a week. "Dr. Chen," he said quietly, "your species' capacity for adaptation is unprecedented in galactic history. The Vex-Star gravely underestimated you." She smiled grimly. "That seems to be a common mistake throughout human history. Our greatest innovations have always come from existential threats." She gestured toward the facility around them. "We're just getting started, Ambassador. Wait until you see what we'll accomplish next week." Deep within the Vex-Star flagship's crew quarters, Squadron Leader Mevnak removed his neural interface helmet with trembling claws. The visual feed he'd been monitoring had left him deeply disturbed. For the past 6 hours, he had observed human communications as part of the Psychological Warfare Division's research team. "You must see this," he whispered to his bunkmate, an intelligence analyst named Rex-4. "The humans are broadcasting their historical records widely. I believe they want us to intercept them." Drexivor reluctantly accepted the neural link. Within moments, his compound eyes widened in shock. "These can't be authentic records," he protested, but uncertainty tinged his voice. The footage showed humans fighting enormous reptilian creatures, surviving global disasters, repelling various alien invasions, and even battling hostile machines they themselves had created. Some humans displayed capabilities far beyond their physical limitations, lifting impossible weights, surviving lethal injuries, or exhibiting tactical genius that seemed almost precognitive. "Our intelligence indicated nothing about these capabilities," Drex-4 said, disconnecting from the feed. "Why wasn't this in the species briefing?" Mevnak's antennae quivered anxiously. The records spanned different eras. Notice the varying quality and technological indicators. They've been fighting these threats continuously throughout their development. In his private surveillance chamber, Cthax observed this exchange through the monitoring system he'd secretly placed in key locations throughout the Vextar fleet. The Concordat would reprimand him severely for this breach of neutrality, but documenting this historic miscalculation took precedence over protocol. He watched as the confusion spread through the Vextar ranks. The Psychological Warfare Division had intended to demoralize humans by broadcasting scenes of superior Vextar technology. Instead, the humans had countered with their own unique weapon, imagination. Cthax knew what the Vextar didn't. Most of these historical records were entertainment, fictional films, television programs, and games the humans created for amusement. The Vextar, whose cultural development had prioritized practical information exchange, had no concept of fiction. To them, a visual record was either true or a deliberate deception. The idea of creating elaborate falsehoods purely for entertainment was incomprehensible. On his secure terminal, Cthax accessed the human broadcasts directly. They were cycling through decades of science fiction, disaster films, superhero stories, and survival narratives, all presented without context that would identify them as fiction. He watched scenes from Independence Day give way to Pacific Rim, followed by The Terminator and Alien. A message from his human contact, General Fatima Hassan, appeared on his private channel. "Is it working? Are they watching our broadcasts?" Cthax responded, "They're not just watching. They believe these are historical documents. Your entertainment media is more effective than any weapon you could deploy against their morale." Her reply came quickly. "Perfect. Phase 2 begins tomorrow. We're integrating actual historical footage with the entertainment content, real wars, natural disasters, and genuine human resilience. Let them try to determine which is which." Cthax closed the communication channel and updated his ongoing report. The Vextar's psychological warfare experts were now experiencing their own psychological crisis. They had come expecting to find a fragile species easily broken by fear. Instead, they discovered beings who imagined and routinely entertained themselves with scenarios far worse than anything the Vextar could threaten, and who emerged triumphant in these imagined horrors time after time. No wonder the Vextar ground forces were reporting increasing hesitation among their troops. They believed they were facing a species that had already defeated countless existential threats, including enemies far more formidable than themselves. How could they know that humans had simply been rehearsing this moment through imagination for generations? On the observation deck of his diplomatic vessel, Cthax watched the unexpected space battle unfold. The Vextar fleet, arranged in textbook defensive formations, faced a chaotic swarm of human spacecraft that defied conventional combat logic. Former civilian vessels, hastily retrofitted with adapted Vextar technology, darted between the massive alien warships using maneuvers no properly trained pilot would attempt. "They're using orbital mechanics as weapons," murmured Cthax's aide, tracking the battle telemetry. "Those transport ships are performing slingshot maneuvers around Earth's moon to achieve attack velocities without engaging engines." A proximity alert sounded as a human military shuttle requested docking clearance. Cthax granted it immediately. Minutes later, Commander Sofia Rodriguez strode onto the observation deck, still wearing her flight suit. "Ambassador," she nodded curtly, "thank you for the tactical data on Vextar blind spots. It's making a difference." Cthax gestured toward the display, showing a group of modified Earth satellites now emitting electromagnetic pulses that disrupted Vextar targeting systems. "Your adaptive approach is unprecedented. Most species would attempt to match Vextar technology directly." Commander Rodriguez laughed. "That would take decades we don't have. We're playing to our strengths instead." She pointed to a formation of small craft harassing a Vextar destroyer. "Those are piloted by our test pilots and aerospace daredevils. They're using techniques developed for air shows and experimental aircraft testing. Maneuvers the Vextar combat computers can't predict because they violate normal risk parameters. Another alert sounded. A Vextar cruiser had suffered catastrophic reactor damage. Rather than retreating for repairs as doctrine dictated, the human vessels responsible for the damage pushed forward, deliberately flying through the radiation leak to attack the cruiser's command module. "Your pilots," Cathax said carefully. "They're accepting radiation exposure to maintain attack position." The commander's expression hardened. They volunteered. Every pilot up there knows the risks. They're wearing experimental radiation shielding. But yes, they're prioritizing mission success over personal safety. On the tactical display, Cathax noted a pattern forming. The humans weren't trying to destroy the Vextar fleet outright, an impossible task given the technological disparity. Instead, they were systematically targeting communication arrays, sensor clusters, and propulsion systems. They were isolating ships from one another, creating confusion in the rigidly coordinated Vextar battle network. "You're not fighting conventionally," Cathax observed. "You're introducing chaos into their system." Commander Rodriguez nodded. "The Vextar operate like a single organism in battle. Each ship has its role, its position, its response protocols. We studied their patterns from the ground invasion and noticed they become disoriented when forced to make individual decisions." She gestured to the display. "Right now, we're cutting their neural network apart." A junior officer approached with a datapad. "Commander, the converted mining vessels are in position around the Vextar flagship." Rodriguez examined the information and smiled grimly. "Perfect. Begin Phase 3. Cathax watched in astonishment as Earth's repurposed asteroid mining craft activated powerful drills and cutting tools, never designed for combat, and began systematically removing external components from the immobilized Vextar vessels. "You're salvaging their technology during active combat," he said, unable to keep the shock from his voice. "We're resource-constrained." Rodriguez explained matter-of-factly. "Every piece of technology we capture accelerates our adaptation timeline." She checked her chronometer. "Our engineers estimate that with the components being harvested right now, we can have a functioning shield network around our major population centers within 72 hours. Fax updated his records with a new observation. Humans don't just adapt technology. They transform the very nature of warfare to suit their immediate needs, ignoring conventions that other species consider inviolable. The Vextar had come prepared for a space battle. The humans had given them a salvage operation in reverse. The conference room aboard Cathax's diplomatic vessel had been carefully designed for neutrality. The circular table gave no position prominence. The lighting was calibrated to all species' visual comfort ranges, and the temperature maintained at a compromise setting that left everyone equally uncomfortable. Supreme Commander Vorzak sat rigidly with his 4 senior officers. Their exoskeletons showed battle damage that would normally have been immediately repaired, a silent testament to how stretched Vextar resources had become. Across from them, the human delegation presented a striking contrast in their diversity. Different genders, ethnicities, ages, and even attire, from military uniforms to business suits to traditional cultural dress. Fax observed the dynamics with fascination. The Vextar spoke only through Vorzak, adhering to their strict chain of command. The humans, meanwhile, seemed to operate with organized chaos. They consulted in whispers, passed notes, occasionally disagreed openly, yet somehow maintained a cohesive position. "Your proposed withdrawal timeline is insufficient," stated Minister Wong from the East Asian Coalition. 6 months leaves too many of your forces in our system." "Unacceptable," replied Supreme Commander Vorzak. "Our fleet requires extensive repairs before long-range transit. Your attacks have damaged our hyperspace capabilities." General Okafor from the African Union leaned forward. "Perhaps we could assist with repairs, provided we have oversight of the process." "Absolutely not," interrupted Dr. Larson from the European Federation. "Giving them repair assistance only returns them to fighting capacity faster." K'Thax noticed the Vextar officers exchanging glances. They had expected to face a unified human position, not this open disagreement. Vorzak's mandibles twitched in what K'Thax recognized as an expression of calculation. He believed he found a weakness to exploit. Perhaps, Vorzak suggested smoothly, we could negotiate separately with regional authorities whose priorities align more closely with our own limitations. To K'Thax's surprise, the human delegates exchanged knowing smiles. Admiral Patel from the Indian subcontinent collective chuckled. Commander Vorzak, this isn't our first experience with divide and conquer tactics. Our species wrote the book on them. Literally, you'll find The Art of War by Sun Tzu quite illuminating on the subject. What the Admiral means, clarified Ambassador Chen, is that while we may debate methods vigorously, we remain unified on objectives. Our disagreements are a strength, not a weakness. We're exploring all possible solutions simultaneously. The Supreme Commander's antennae flattened against his carapace, a sign of frustration. How can disagreement strengthen negotiation? President Ramirez of the Latin American Alliance smiled. Because we've already had every argument you're hoping to instigate, Commander. We've spent centuries negotiating with each other before you arrived. What you're witnessing isn't division. It's collaborative problem-solving. K'Thax intervened, maintaining his role as facilitator. Perhaps a compromise on the withdrawal timeline. The Vextar could begin immediate withdrawal from Earth orbit while maintaining a repair depot in the outer system, away from human population centers, but close enough to avoid long-range travel. The humans exchanged glances, and after a brief huddle, nodded in agreement. Acceptable, with continuous monitoring and inspection rights, said General Okafor. The Supreme Commander considered briefly before responding. We will require material assistance for repairs. We'll provide materials but not technology, countered Dr. Larson. And we want access to certain non-military knowledge databases in exchange. What followed amazed K'Thax, a rapid series of proposals, counter-proposals, and compromises that evolved more efficiently than any negotiation he'd witnessed in centuries of diplomatic service. The humans argued passionately about details, then unified seamlessly once consensus emerged. The Vextar, accustomed to rigid hierarchical decision-making, struggled to adapt to this fluid approach. By session's end, K'Thax understood something profound about human diplomatic strength. Where the Vextar saw contradiction, humans saw complementary perspectives. Their apparent disunity masked a deeper unity of purpose, one forged through millennia of practice negotiating with themselves. The emergency alert blared through K'Thax's quarters, jolting him from his meditation cycle. His communication array activated automatically, displaying multiple urgent messages from both human and Vextar sources. Something had gone catastrophically wrong. Ambassador K'Thax, General Hassan's face appeared on the primary screen, her expression grim. The hardliners have made their move. 3 Vextar battle groups have broken formation and are launching attacks on major population centers. The Supreme Commander claims he's lost control of these ships. Before K'Thax could respond, another channel opened. Supreme Commander Vorzak, his compound eyes reflecting the chaos on his bridge. This is not my directive, Vorzak insisted, mandibles clicking in distress. Sub-Commander Dreskar has led a splinter faction. They reject the negotiated withdrawal and believe a decisive strike will break human resistance. K'Thax rushed to his observation deck. Earth's night side was illuminated by the flashes of orbital bombardment. The Vextar hardliners were targeting cities, power grids, and communication hubs, a desperate attempt to force humanity into submission. I need to speak with the Human Defense Council immediately, K'Thax told his aide. This violates all protocols of the preliminary agreement. Within minutes, he was connected to the United Earth Defense Command. The humans appeared remarkably calm despite the crisis unfolding. We anticipated this possibility, Ambassador. Admiral Chen explained, as tactical displays behind her showed Earth's defensive systems activating. The psychological profiles of several Vextar subcommanders indicated they would resist a peaceful resolution. Thax watched in astonishment as a previously undetected network of orbital platforms emerged from concealment. The platforms, clearly incorporating advanced Vextar technology, merged with human engineering, generated overlapping energy fields above the targeted regions. "You've created a planetary shield," Thax whispered, amazed. "How long have you had this capability?" 72 hours, replied Dr. Okafor, the Defense Council's chief scientist. "We've been deploying the components in secret while negotiations proceeded. We hoped not to need it." On the tactical displays, the rebel Vextar ships pressed their attack, only to have their weapons absorbed or deflected by the shield network. The hardliners, expecting to inflict devastating casualties on defenseless populations, instead found their targets protected by technology they recognized as their own, but modified in ways they didn't understand. "We need to end this quickly," General Rodriguez stated. "Ambassador, can you open a channel to all Vextar vessels, including the rebel faction?" Thax nodded, utilizing his diplomatic override codes to access the Vextar command network. "Channel open. All ships will receive this transmission." General Rodriguez stood, her posture straight and authoritative. "Attention Vextar forces. Your attack on civilian targets violates interstellar conventions and the preliminary peace agreements. We have shown restraint until now. That ends this moment." At her signal, Earth's unified defense forces launched their counterattack. The human response was not the indiscriminate retaliation the Vextar might have expected. Instead, it was surgical and precise. Modified human vessels targeted the rebel ship's propulsion and weapon systems specifically, disabling rather than destroying. One by one, the rebel Vextar ships went dark, drifting powerless in orbit. No massive explosions, no devastating loss of life. Just the silent neutralization of a threat. Within 17 minutes, all rebel vessels had been immobilized. Thax updated his ongoing report with shaking hands. The humans could have destroyed the rebel ships entirely. Their weapons, enhanced with adapted Vextar technology, certainly had that capability. Instead, they had chosen the more difficult path of disabling the enemy while preserving lives. "We're sending boarding teams to the disabled vessels," Admiral Chen informed Thax. "Medical personnel will accompany our security forces. We'll treat their injured and take the rest into custody." This, Thax realized, was perhaps humanity's most unpredictable quality of all: the capacity for mercy at the moment of their greatest advantage. The great chamber of the Galactic Conquests fell into a reverent hush as Thax concluded his formal presentation. Representatives from 17 spacefaring civilizations contemplated the evidence and analysis he had presented over the past 3 hours. The holographic displays surrounding the chamber showed key moments from the Earth-Vextar conflict, from the initial invasion to the final resolution. Elder Zorin of the Ancient Worlds Council broke the silence. "In 10,000 cycles, I have never witnessed such rapid adaptation from a previously unknown species. Their capacity to incorporate foreign technology while maintaining their cultural diversity defies evolutionary models." Thax nodded respectfully. "Humans appear to thrive on seemingly contradictory principles. Elder, they are simultaneously competitive and collaborative, individualistic and community-minded, tradition-honoring and innovation-seeking." A murmur rippled through the gathered dignitaries as the chamber doors opened to admit the first official human delegation to the Concordat. 7 representatives entered, their diversity immediately apparent in their varied appearances, attire, and mannerisms. The Concordat members watched with a mixture of curiosity and caution. "Distinguished representatives," began Concordat moderator Velix, "we welcome Earth's delegation to this historic session. Your species' remarkable defense against the Vextar Imperium has drawn the attention of the galactic community. Ambassador Thax has provided extensive documentation of your capabilities and potential." Dr. Maya Patel stepped forward as the designated speaker for Earth. "We come seeking understanding and peaceful exchange. The conflict with the Vextar was not of our choosing, but it has propelled us into a wider universe we are eager to explore. From his position at the chamber's edge, Thax observed the subtle reactions across the assembly. Some species showed signs of enthusiasm, others wariness, but all displayed intense interest. The humans had become the most significant topic in interstellar politics overnight. Supreme Commander Vorzak, now leading the reformed Vextar government, approached the central podium. His once imposing presence was tempered by the humility of defeat, yet he carried himself with dignity. "The moderator has asked what wisdom I might offer regarding humans," Vorzak stated, his translator conveying his words to all present. "My answer is simple: underestimate them at your peril. We mistook technological advantage for superiority. We mistook their diversity for weakness. We mistook their adaptability for desperation." The commander's compound eyes swept across the chamber. "If you're planning to fight humans, you're in for a tough ride. But if you choose to collaborate with them instead," he turned toward the Earth delegation, "I believe they will transform our understanding of what is possible." Thax watched as representatives from various civilizations approached the humans, initiating conversations that would form the foundation of new interstellar relationships. Scientific exchange protocols were proposed, cultural missions planned, and the first tentative trade agreements outlined. As the session continued, Dr. Patel approached Thax. "Ambassador, Earth's Unified Council has a proposal for you. We would be honored if you would consider becoming our advisor on interstellar relations. Your understanding of both human nature and galactic politics is unique." Thax felt a surge of emotion he rarely experienced in his diplomatic career. Genuine surprise. Such an appointment would be unprecedented. No Concordat species has ever invited an outsider to serve in such a capacity. Dr. Patel smiled. "Well, as you've noted in your reports, humans specialize in the unprecedented. We believe this arrangement would benefit both Earth and the Concordat." As Thax considered the offer, he realized he was witnessing the beginning of a new galactic era. The humans hadn't merely survived first contact, they had fundamentally altered the balance of interstellar power through their unique approach to crisis. Their entry into galactic civilization would not be as conquered subjects or cautious newcomers, but as equals bringing fresh perspectives to ancient institutions. And perhaps that, Thax reflected, was humanity's greatest strength of all. The ability to transform challenges into opportunities for growth that benefited not just themselves, but everyone around them.